Hello lovely people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kat and I make videos about books, writing and other random things living in my neurodivergent brain. Today we're doing the International Booktuber Tag. Ellen from the Ellen May Book Club wanted me to do this. Thank you Ellen for tagging me, I'm very excited about it. And this tag was originally created by Daniela from Only If For a Page. The first question is, where are you from and what is your native language or languages? So I'm from France, so my native language is French, as you can probably hear in my accent. I lived in Sweden for a few years, so I've been also traveling quite a bit and working in English. So English nowadays is my second language. I consider myself almost bilingual, even if my grammar is not always perfect. My accent is not perfect either, far from it. But yeah, I work full-time in English and I have a lot of friends who are either native English speaker or whose language we have in common is English. So I feel fairly confident in that language. And to be honest, I've never felt super French or particularly attached to the country. I loved living in Sweden and I also traveled to Japan, where weirdly I felt more at home in Japan than I've ever felt in France. So the first time I traveled there, came back after 2 months, I had quite a strong reverse culture shock. So I'm officially French, but I think at heart I'm probably a bit more Swedish or a mix of different cultures. In what languages do you read books? I used to think that I was reading mainly in English, and I think that was probably the case for a long time, especially when I was in Sweden. But if you've watched my mid-year freakout tag video, I realized that I've read more books in French for the first half of the year than in English, which was very surprising to me. So I read mainly in French and English. I also make an effort to try to read in Spanish and in Swedish, but it's mainly to practice those languages and improve. I'm far from fluent in those languages. Like I function in Swedish. My Spanish, I understand much better than I'm able to speak. It's quite rusty. But yeah, I love using literature and books to help keep those languages active and to try to improve. So I do try to read books in those languages, but they might be simpler books, like simpler language than I would read in French or English, obviously. In general, I do love languages, so if I had all the time in the world and in an ideal setting, I would be reading in many more languages than that. Is there Booktube in your native language? And if so, what is the community like? There is definitely Booktube in French, but to be honest, I don't really watch it. For some reason, it feels very cringy to me and unnatural, and I have that same feeling when I'm watching most French movies and TV shows. And it's not just me, I know my husband has the same feeling. I think when you function in other languages, for some reason in French, recorded things feel very unnatural. Like again, YouTube videos, movies and TV shows, it feels strange. So I'm not a big fan and I don't really watch it. If there is a Booktube community in your native language, why did you decide to join the international one? From the beginning, it was very evident to me that I would be doing this in English. Again, I don't really watch YouTube in French. I've always watched it in English, and all the channels that I follow are in English mainly, and then some in Swedish, some in Spanish, again to practice the language or because I'm discovering new channels that I'm excited about. Are there any struggles or challenges for you as a non-native English speaker? Of course. I think weirdly I'm even more critical of myself watching back when I speak in English than I would in French. I notice how my accent is not where I want it to be. I notice all the small grammatical mistakes that I make and it's just driving me nuts. I just have to let it go and I try to speak as freely and spontaneously as I can. So I guess it's just inevitable. Like, I'm gonna make mistakes because it's not my native language, but it's quite frustrating. And it was a bit, I don't know, like disillusioning, is that a word? Because from my years abroad, I had people, like when I would introduce myself or like speak with them, they were just like, oh, you're from the US, right? Like, people would think some people, not all of them, but like some people would be sure I'm a native English speaker. So I always thought that I had quite a good accent. I've regularly been complimented on my accent. I've regularly been complimented on my accent, so I was quite proud of it. But now that I have to watch myself because I'm making videos and I edit them and I just spend hours listening to myself, it's not fun, and it's a bit frustrating because I don't feel that my English is as good as I thought it was. So yeah, like it's a bit hard for my ego. No, it's like it's a small thing, but I just wish my English was perfect. I'm just a bit of a perfectionist, and I worry that my English is getting worse being now back in France, because I'm not exposed as much as I used to be to native English speakers of just like very high level. I mean, I still work full-time in English, so I'm still exposed quite a bit. I consume a lot of content in English, and I'm just rambling at this point, but yeah, I'm just a perfectionist, so I would want my English to be better, and so having to watch myself on video in a way is good because it's a bit of a reality check of where my English is actually at. It just reminds me of all the mistakes that I make. I just have to learn to let it go. And then obviously the second aspect is just that it can be hard to find my words or express things as articulately as I would want and as I could probably do in French. That being said, because I spend so much time in English for my work, for my hobbies and all of that, I have the same issue in French at times where I have the exact meaning of what I want to say in English and there isn't an exact translation in French, and so I'm struggling to express things in French, and so now I'm speaking quite a bit of Franglish. Yeah, I think my French has degraded a little bit because of the amount of English that I speak. How do you get hold of English books? Obviously, options are more limited in France, especially where I am, because I'm not in Paris or in any major city. It's a smaller city where I live, and I live even outside of that. So in libraries and in bookshops, they have a very limited selection of books in English, if they have one at all. So it's already good when there is one, and I'm quite happy about it, but it's not necessarily the books that I want to read, or it's not necessarily the most recent ones when it comes to the library, or it will be like the big blockbusters when it's in a bookshop, not necessarily the titles that I'm interested in. Also, I tried using my library account to use Libby because I've seen so many YouTubers recommend it, where you can borrow ebooks and audiobooks, I think, online from your library. I can't do that. It doesn't seem that France is part of that program, which is very frustrating. I can borrow audiobooks and ebooks from my library, but first, the audiobooks are on CDs. I don't have a CD player anymore, so I can't use that. And the ebooks, they are not compatible with Kindle, which is what I have. So it's also very frustrating. But then to the topic of language, again, the selection in English is extremely limited. For physical books, I do have to order them online most of the time. And then I try to rely as well on audiobook services. If I can't find it anywhere else, I will use Audible, but I try to limit that. So I use Storytel, which is a Swedish company, and I started using it when I came back from Sweden to listen to Swedish audiobooks. So in there I can mainly listen to audiobooks in Swedish. I put Finnish because at some point I wanted to learn Finnish, and then Italian as well, and then some in Spanish. So mainly Spanish and Swedish. And for English ones, again, it will be sometimes on Storytel, but the selection is more limited. Otherwise, I will use either Audible if I have credits, or an app that's called Zigzag, which is really cool because sometimes they have both the audiobook and the ebook, and it's the same price. Like, you can have the package together, and it's more of an independent company, so I quite like them. And they have a payment model that's really cool. It's not a subscription. Basically, the more books you buy from them, and you buy them one by one, the cheaper they will become. So yeah, I will link them in the description below. I think it's a really, really cool model. Much better than Audible, if you ask me. So yeah, I quite like that service. Overall, because I'm also thinking about being a bit more of an essentialist or a minimalist with my book collection, I'm considering using my Kindle more. I don't really read on ebooks, but I'm thinking that could be a good compromise. The issue is that they are very expensive. Like, I don't understand why do they cost almost as much as a physical book? So that's my main issue, and again, because I'm very limited on what I can get from my library. Next question. What is the best thing about being part of the international community? You can answer in your native language and add subtitles if you want to. Je dirais que le meilleur aspect de faire partie de cette communauté internationale, c'est de rencontrer des gens de plein de pays différents, de plein de cultures différentes, avec des vues et des perspectives différentes. Ça élargit l'horizon et on rencontre des gens qu'on n'aurait jamais rencontrés dans la vraie vie et qu'on n'aurait pas rencontrés si on était limité à sa propre langue, sa propre culture. C'est tellement un privilège en fait de parler plusieurs langues et d'avoir accès à ces autres cultures, à des livres dans des langues différentes. Je trouve que c'est juste formidable en fait. Donc moi je recommande à tout le monde d'apprendre une langue étrangère, et ça se nourrit l'un l'autre en fait. Si t'aimes lire et que t'apprends une autre langue, eh ben tu peux utiliser cette langue pour lire des livres auxquels t'aurais pas eu accès autrement, et tu peux utiliser la lecture pour améliorer tes compétences linguistiques. Donc c'est top. Alright, that felt very weird. I hope you enjoyed it, because I'm probably not gonna do it again anytime soon. Do you watch other international booktube channels? Shout out a channel that you've found recently. So it depends on what we mean by recently, but I will shout out a few channels that I've discovered at some point since I started my channel, so in about the last 6 months, and some are more recent than others. The first one obviously is Ellen from the Ellen Made Book Club channel, who tagged me to do this. She's just the sweetest human being, and she's one of my best booktube friends, so I think her channel is amazing. She has such a gentle and quiet vibe, but she's also quite funny, and so I would really recommend that you check out her channel. The next channel that I want to shout out is Øystein from Becoming a Bookworm. He's from Norway, and he makes rather short videos that are quite thought-provoking. I really enjoy them, like they really make me think, and he also has a rather dry sense of humor that feels very Nordic to me and that I really enjoy. He was already tagged by Ellen to do this, and I don't know if he actually does tags, so no pressure, but if you want to check his channel, I think you will have a good time. Next, I want to give a shout out to Citlali. She makes videos in Spanish though, so it might not be accessible to everyone, but she just has the loveliest, bubbliest energy, and she laughs very easily, and she's just very cute. So again, if you understand Spanish, or if you want to use the opportunity to practice your Spanish, I think you would really enjoy her channel. Next, I want to give a shout out to Mimi. She lives in the US, but I know that in a video she mentioned that she moved there at some point and English is not her first language. She's super funny. She has a very quirky type of personality. I think just her videos are such a good time. She reads a lot of romance and manga, and she makes those very cool graphics kind of showing her reading progress and kind of reading wrap-ups. I think it's very, very cool. Next is Silvia from Library and Bounded. She's from Bulgaria, and to be honest, I'm very surprised that she doesn't have more followers than she has at the moment. I think she's around 3,000 subscribers, but she deserves dozen more. Like, her videos are so well produced, they look so professional, and the quality is just amazing. She does very cool TBR videos with a Lord of the Ring inspired game. Again, I think the quality of her videos is just amazing, so go check out her channel. Next is Mariandrea from Books and Bocadillos. She lives in the US, but she is a native Spanish speaker and English is only her second language. She has a very gentle and very soothing vibe, which I really love. I think just watching her videos make me very relaxed. She reads a lot of different things and she also talks about food, which is always a plus. Next is the channel Read with Susmitha. I think she's from India or maybe Sri Lanka, I'm not entirely sure. I'm quite new to her channel, but I really like it. I enjoy how widely she reads, and she also reads quite a bit of fantasy, and we seem to have similar tastes and interest. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to Sonali from the Melodramatic Bookworm. She's already being tagged by Ellen to do this video, but I wanted to give her a shout out too because I love her energy, I love her sarcastic tone, and she does read a lot, but she does a great job at giving you rapid fire reviews of all the books that she read. So again, go check out her channel and I will link everyone in the description below. I'm tagging everyone from this list apart from Ellen, who already did the video, obviously. I'm super curious to hear your answers. As always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.